Hello, and welcome to the AAA Network, where today we will be discussing the MAGA movement. Though most may believe that the Make America Great Again movement originated with former President Donald Trump, some may be surprised to find out that the late President Ronald Reagan was the first to state the famous words, "Make America Great Again."
Crusade to make America great again.
Through Reagan, Trump was given the political framework to create such an impactful office, mainly based upon their public background in media, as well as creating tax cuts, such as the Economic Recovery and Tax Act and Tax Cuts and Jobs Act, somewhat reviving the basis of Reaganomics and reviving the Republican Party. Through Reaganomics, Americans have been given the opportunity to expand their fiscally conservative ideologies and create political movements to get the government out of their lives and into the hands of the people. This specifically became profound during the Obama presidency. Under President Obama, the national debt grew the most in dollar terms, while fighting the Great Recession with an $831 billion economic stimulus package and an $858 billion tax cut, according to thebalance.com. Through this, conservative Americans banded together in response to the massive federal overspending, creating the Tea Party, standing for Taxed Enough Already, giving the Republican Party the means to win back the House of Representatives in 2010 for the first time since 2006, and increasing their House seats by 63. This is according to the Federal Election Commission, or the FEC. In the same way that Reaganomics was the framework to create the Tea Party movement, the Tea Party movement acted as a catalyst to create the fiscally conservative MAGA movement, which we see so prevalently today, with Donald Trump being the de facto leader of the movement.
Hi, my name is Adam Bobby, and we're very excited to interview you today. To jump right in, what is your name and occupation?
My name is Tom Ogaz. I'm a general manager for Parts Authority here in Southern California.
Awesome. So what is your overall opinion on the Make America Great Again movement?
I think overall opinion is exactly what it states. I mean, trying to improve on America and maybe change some of the initiatives that have been, put into place that, maybe a lot of Americans have suffered from, either knowingly or unknowingly.
Okay, so when you hear Make America Great Again, do you immediately associate it with improving the country, or do you think of Donald Trump when you hear it?
When I hear Make America Great Again, I'd say, improving the country overall.
Okay.
Granted, it was initiated by Trump, but I think it's evolved past that.
Right, okay. So seeing that we have experienced 2 years with Joe Biden as president, what are the biggest changes that have affected you the most in your life?
Well, I think the changes that affected me the most are the same that's affected a lot of people. Unfortunately, the stock market, interest rates, gas prices, our current state of inflation, as well as some of the, initiatives as far as property, taxes on property, that personally has affected, myself and my family.
Right. So do you think that any of this will cause any kind of revival of the MAGA movement in the 2024 election?
Yeah, and I don't think I'm alone in that. I definitely think it's going to.
Okay. Have you attended or seen any of the MAGA rallies or Trump rallies? If not, would you consider attending one in the future?
I have seen them online. I've seen them on television, but I do not plan on attending any of them. No, not personally.
Okay. Why do you think that the MAGA movement is seen in such a controversial way?
I don't think it's the MAGA movement itself. I think it is, potentially what it stands for. And you asked me initially, do I associate with Trump? Do I associate it with improving the country? I think a lot of people associate it with Trump. And Trump is, a polarizing, personality. And, it's a love or hate him. And I think a lot of people, what they call it, Trump, whether just completely against Trumpitis or Trumping, there's a phrase or terminology for it. But yeah, I think, it's just the association with Trump and some of the negative things that surround him, I think is what caused people to automatically, be against it.
Okay. So I know we touched on this on the other question, but given the state of the economy, do you think that Democrats would change their opinion on MAGA when comparing the economy during Biden's term versus Trump's term?
I don't think so. I think they've made their bed. They need to stick to what they've said. I mean, changing it, I think, is going to, potentially cause them more harm than good.
Okay. Living in California, do you think that if you lived somewhere like Texas or Florida, where the MAGA movement is extremely popular, would you become involved or associated at all with the MAGA culture?
I don't think the venue matters where I live per se. I think it's just a personal, let's say, threshold that at some point, if I feel we are going the wrong direction more so, it doesn't seem to be improving. That I would step up and become more involved in what I think would be the right thing for the country and and our citizens.
Okay, so adding on to that, in California, do you think that there is any negative side effects for anyone who is a strong supporter of the MAGA movement in their career, family, daily life, etc.?
You said any side effects. I'd concur with that. I'd say yes, there are some. I don't want to broad stroke it, but I do know of people that have been negatively confronted because of their them flying MAGA hats or a MAGA shirt. As far as business, as far as professionally, I'm not aware of anybody in California that I know of personally or can recite that has had something happen to them in their professional life because of it.
What kind of future do you see for the MAGA movement?
Rebranding at some point. I mean, again, it's got too much baggage associated with it. I think it did what it was supposed to do initially, but now it's tied. I think I think it needs to be again repackaged.
What kind of common stereotypes have you heard about MAGA supporters, and are any of them true?
Obviously, again, it's not so much the MAGA supporters, but it's that the connotation of the Trump supporters. And again, if you're supporting Trump, then you support somebody who's for harassment, that cares only about the white privilege, that is only interested in the top percentiles of the United States. Those are the things that people, the stereotypes that go along with it.
Right. So the phrase "Make America Great Again" looks good on paper, but what is it, do you think, that drives people to dislike it? The supporters, Trump, or being misinformed about "Make America Great Again"?
I want to say misinformed, but I mean that's not even 100% accurate. But I'd have to say overall, again, I can't paint everybody with the same brush, but I think the majority of people who are against it are just simply misinformed about
Gotcha.
what its origin and what it's supposed to do and what a lot of people mean it to believe.
Okay. So one last question for you. The MAGA movement was very strong during the 2020 election. Were you surprised by the outcome of Joe Biden's election, and do you agree with many Trump supporters that the election was tampered with in terms of voter fraud?
Wow, that's the big question there, huh?
Mm-hmm.
Gotta get me on, proof. I was very surprised by the Biden outcome. I was extremely surprised, based on the polls and based on the initial reporting and based on what was going on. It was very surprising. As far as if the election was tampered with or not, I think there was election tampering. I mean, there's been enough evidence and proof to show that. I think there's been election tampering in other elections besides this one. But was it tampered with enough to make a difference? I can't answer. I don't know that. I can't say that affirmative that yes there was or not. But I think there's been enough information out there and shown that there was definitely some tampering with how the process, and of course how it was crafted was very suspicious.
Right.
the way the polling was, the way they changed the policies at the last minute, the way some of the things were decided, there was definitely some suspicious behavior behind, let's say a lot of, blue type states that, it makes you enough to question.
Okay, thank you for your insight. And thank you for joining us today.
No problem. Thanks for having me, guys.
The Make America Great Again movement was roaring during the presidency of Donald Trump. However, it began to fall after the January 6th riots at the Capitol in 2021. At the time of this recording, the United States is 16 months into the presidency of Joe Biden. And given the current socioeconomic state of the U.S., will we see a resurgence of the MAGA movement in the coming 2024 presidential election? Gas prices and inflation, the two most important factors for the average American to determine the strength of the economy. They've both been rampant under the presidency of Joe Biden. Gas prices are at an all-time high as at the time of this recording, the national average is $4.61 per gallon of regular gasoline, and last week showed an all-time diesel high at $5.50 per gallon, according to gasprices.AAA.com. Apart from the economy, Joe Biden's presidency has been a point of controversy within itself through the elections and his composure as a leader. Apart from the obvious controversy that surrounded the 2020 elections, which are still being brought up and argued by Democrats and Republicans alike, Joe Biden has never really been a solid candidate for either party. This is evident with the Settle for Biden movement, which was apparent in the 2020 election. This movement was composed of Democrats who simply just did not want Trump in office. And Biden's approval ratings by the Associated Press reflect this sort of quasi-support. Only 39% of Americans approve of his performance as president, and only 2 in 10 Americans believe that the U.S. is headed in the right direction and that we have a strong economy. Now, how is this going to reflect in the 2024 election? The Republican Party is currently in a divide between moderate Republicans and those who are deemed extremist, the Trump supporters and the MAGA Republicans. However, this may soon change. Political right victories in court, such as the draft to overturn Roe v. Wade and a recent Ninth Circuit decision to overturn gun laws based on age, may act as a catalyst for unity among the Republican Party. At the very least, it may act as the ignition for a resurgence of the MAGA movement itself. Given all of these factors, the MAGA movement, or at least a strong, united Republican Party, will become a large part of the 2024 presidential election. However, this raises a very important question. If Donald Trump runs for president in 2024, to what extent will the newly ignited movement be successful given the backlash that they may receive from their actions at the January 6th riots? Will their ability to support their candidate be overruled and trumped by the power of Democrats and moderates opposed to their actions at the Capitol?
Thank you for watching this week's edition of the AAA News broadcast. We'll catch you next week.